Hey everyone, thanks for joining me today on this episode of the Personal Finance Playbook. I'm your host, Coach Jack of Longhorn Financial. For most people, we don't think about things until something happens, or until we have to. It could be procrastinating on a work or school project, or it could be buying a gift for our holidays or a birthday, or taking care of something around the house. In many instances, I know it may not cost you that much to wait until the last minute. I know I wait till the last minute on a lot of things also, aside from a little bit of stress. But for other things, not being prepared can mean disaster. My guest today will be talking about one thing that none of us really like to think about until it happens, and that's becoming disabled and then having to deal with getting Social Security benefits. It's a process that can be very complicated and daunting for the average person. So joining me today is my good friend and personal attorney, Krista Emerson. She's actually helped me with a number of items, luckily not disability insurance, but she's here to shed some light on a very confusing process. Welcome to the show, Krista.
Thank you for having me, Jack. Happy to be here.
Thank you for joining us. Yeah, so let's get right into it. So you handle disability cases. So what types of cases or types of disabilities do you see most often?
The most frequent are either purely mental health cases or physical cases where somebody's had an injury to their back or their spine or their legs, their arms, or a combination of both. It really varies depending on age group. Most of my musculoskeletal pain, physical impairment clients are over 40-ish. A lot of the times the mental health impairments, because they appear earlier in life, are younger claimants, and they're not the easiest to approve, but that's not, it's not impossible to get them approved.
It's very interesting. I guess I would have figured that it would have gone the other way, that maybe some younger folks would have different issues and the older folks with some of the mental, but you're saying it's not always that case.
No.
That's surprising. So, but the physical issues, though, are not always a result of, I mean, granted, car accidents can and do happen,
Right.
but physical issues are not always the result of car accidents, right?
No, it can be anything, and that's the difference between Social Security and a workers' comp or a personal injury claim. You can be disabled for any reason at all, even self-inflicted. So,
Wow.
If you drive your car into a tree because you're driving drunk, you can still be eligible for Social Security benefits.
That's kind of sad and funny all at the same time,
Right.
I suppose. So, when it comes to disability benefits, I know sometimes people get confused because Social Security has a couple different programs.
Yes.
And so one is called SSI and the other is called SSDI. So take a moment and just clear up that confusion. Sort of what do those mean and how do they, generally work?
Okay, so everybody always comes to my office saying they want to file for SSI. That is never what they want to file for. They almost always want to file for SSDI. So SSI stands for Supplemental Security Income, and that is generally for somebody who does not have a strong work history or doesn't have enough work credits, and they have to also be low income and meet an asset test. So for a single person, they can only have $2,000 in liquid assets or anything that can be converted to liquid assets, $3,000 for a married couple. That does not include your home and one vehicle, but if you have a married couple that has two newer vehicles, they're automatically going to be denied for SSI.
Wow.
So SSDI is Social Security Disability Insurance. So that's when you pay into the system and you've earned the credits to become insured. And the number of credits you need varies based on your age. So you need a maximum of 40, but younger people require less credits to be approved. There are also differences in payments. So SSI is generally a much lower payment, caps out at around $770 a month. Potentially you can get a state supplement to jump it a little bit higher, whereas SSDI is a much higher payment because it's based off your earnings history and not off any other variables that can reduce your benefit for SSI.
Okay, so well, I'm surprised that SSI, that amount's so low. I mean, I can't even imagine trying to survive on $700 a month, 700 change. And you talked a little bit about the eligibility requirements for SSDI, but that also assumes that you work at a job that pays into Social Security, right?
Correct.
Like most private
Yes.
sector jobs. What about governmental jobs? So if you work for the state or federal government where you don't pay into Social Security, Do they still qualify for SSDI or SSI?
Occasionally they do. I've seen it happen very rarely where people work for the government, say for the Internal Revenue Service, seasonally. And then they have another job where they work at over the summer when they get laid off. So they would be somebody who would be able to get both SSDI or SSI and potentially a government benefit depending on how long they've been working for the federal government in the form of a public employees claim. But generally speaking, no, because they don't pay into the system. So they would never be able to qualify for SSDI if they've not paid in and earned their work credits. So they would only be eligible for SSI, which, as I said, is kind of a tough benefit to get if you're married and you have a working spouse or you have any type of assets. But to be eligible in general, you have to have a disability that's expected to last 12 months or more, expected to end in death. So the types of cases that people will always call for are, I tore my rotator cuff, I'm going to be out of work for 6 weeks. You don't need Social Security. You need short-term disability. And if you don't have that through your employer, you're kind of out of luck. But, you know, it happens where sometimes you tear your rotator cuff, you think you're going to be out of work for 6 months, and then you can no longer lift your arm and you can no longer use your dominant hand. That's when it would turn into a disability claim for Social Security purposes.
Okay, so people, I know, you know, I've heard the same thing where sometimes people will break their leg because they were out doing a sports activity or in an auto accident. Right, so if they're expected to heal sort of normally and no big deal, then not this, right? But if it persists or they can't walk as a result of it, then it becomes the SSDI. Okay, that's very interesting. So, but these programs are also separate from workman's comp, right? You mentioned that earlier. So, so I guess for those who don't know, just give us a very quick overview of sort of workman's comp, sort of what does that actually mean and sort of how does that differ from some of these?
So workers' compensation claims, you have to have your injury originating as a result of your employment. So it has to be an on-the-job injury, not the case with SSI or SSDI. So you can get a workers' comp claim approved and get an SSDI or SSI claim approved, but there's going to be an offset because they're not going to double pay you for the same injury. So there's always an offset, whether it's between workers' comp, short-term disability, long-term disability, and in the cases where you have a public employee, there may also be an offset if they're eligible for SSI or SSDI as well.
Okay. So I know you mentioned about the difference between the two programs, and so let's focus on SSDI because that's really kind of what we're talking about. That's a disability program. I know that you hear all sorts of stories out there, right? And of course, people can find all sorts of stuff on the internet. But just for our viewers, help us with just a very broad overview of sort of how this process works, right? Just, you know, the basic steps if someone were to think about applying for this.
So your first step is obviously going to be to fill out the online application, which in and of itself, if you don't know what you're doing and you don't have all your information handy, is going to prove to be a very daunting task. You have to have all your doctor information, the last time you've seen them, all the medications you take, who prescribes them, emergency room visits. So, you know, a good intake will give the attorney working with them all of that information to process the initial claim. So once that claim gets processed through the internet, it then gets transferred to the Disability Determination Services Office. And they're tasked with looking at your case cover to cover, reviewing all of the medical evidence that's been obtained by them or provided by the attorney, and making a decision based on that evidence if you meet or equal what they call the Blue Book listings. So Social Security has a book of listings, different for adults and children, and if you meet all the criteria in a certain category, you will be approved. If you don't, you might equal a listing, but you won't meet a listing. It's harder to equal a listing than it is to meet a listing.
So let me interrupt you for a sec. So what do you mean by sort of equal a listing as opposed to meet a listing?
Okay. So for example, meeting a listing could be that you have a hip injury that you are unable to ambulate on any surface without the use of two handheld devices, say a double arm cane or a walker. You can't be expected to work when you can't use your hands, even in a sedentary job. Equaling a listing could be that you have that same hip injury, but you also have an issue with your opposite arm with lifting. So while you may not exactly meet that listing requirement, a combination of the impairments can equal that listing.
Okay. All right. Okay. Thank you. Okay. So they fill out the online application. They it goes to the disability sort of review, if you will.
Yep.
What happens after that?
So it takes about 2 to 3 months before the case is decided. During that time, you're going to be asked for a bunch of information: birth certificate, pay stubs if you have them. You'll have an adult function report and a work history report. Those are the scariest things for people to get because they don't understand why these questions are being asked. And what they're really doing is assessing your functional capabilities in those forms. What I find happens a lot of the time when people try and fill them out themselves, they don't want to sound as though they're disabled. They don't want to sound impaired, which is kind of the opposite. We don't want anybody to exaggerate, but we want to know if you have trouble bathing yourself and you need assistance. We need to know that you need assistance.
I think there's a little pride work in there, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it doesn't discriminate man or woman. It happens in both genders. So then after that is filled out, they may, if they don't have enough medical information, send you to one of their own doctors for an evaluation. It's a double-edged sword because you're going to one of Social Security's impartial paid doctors. They're sending you there at their own expense. The doctors obviously do get paid by Social Security, so they probably have some inherent bias, I would say, but their job is to be objective. So they will use that information to determine what your status is as to whether or not you're disabled. A lot of the times the doctors don't spend a substantial amount of time with you, maybe 15, 20 minutes. And that's why it's really important to have your own medical physicians providing information to make sure that you're treating with physicians that see you all the time because they have a great knowledge base of how you're functioning and what your impairments are. But if you don't attend the evaluation, they pretty much rubber stamp deny you. So.
Wow.
Yeah.
Rubber stamp deny you.
Pretty much, yeah, because they don't have enough evidence to decide whether or not you're disabled. So if you don't go, you get denied. And if you do go, chances are you're still going to get denied at initial application.
Wow. So on the initial application, from the time someone gets disabled, well, to the time I should say where they can fill out the online application, going through the review, the medical exam, and everything else in the work history, the initial applications, and then there's a decision at the end, right?
Yep.
Start to finish, approximately how long does that take?
For the initial phase, 2 to 3 months on average, sometimes a little bit longer.
Okay, so you're looking at 2 to 3 months, and like you said, if you don't have any other source of income, such as short-term disability policy through employer or potentially workman's comp, right, depending.
Yep.
That means you could be going 2 or 3 months without getting paid, essentially.
Yep, and it gets worse because a lot of people get denied at initial application and have to go on to the next level, which is reconsideration, where they have a new person come in and look at your file cover to cover with new information and make a decision.
So what would you say, I'm sure statistics vary based on the type of injury, the type of disability, whatever, but if you could give us a broad average, right? What percentage of cases would you say are denied initially? As a very broad percentage.
Percentage denied initial is probably 70% or higher.
Wow. So it's hard to get past that first hurdle.
It is.
Okay.
And
sorry, go ahead.
One of the big reasons is because people file right away. So if something happens, a lot of people file right away. We don't know that they're going to meet their 12-month requirement. But because the whole process can be very lengthy, and if you're going to hearing, you might be waiting 18 months from the time you file your initial application until you get to hearing. You've met your 12 months.
Right.
So if people, if somebody gets into an accident tomorrow and knows that they've broken their back and they're going to go through 9 months of rehab and probably still not be 100% or be able to walk or lift or stand or even sit for a period of time, they're probably going to file right away while they're in the hospital. That's going to be a recommendation, but because they haven't had any time to recover, any chance to recover, they're likely going to get denied.
Okay, so yeah, because there just hasn't been enough time that's passed to figure out if it's going to linger. Right. Okay. Let's switch gears just a little bit, and let's talk about some of the mental disabilities, right? So we've talked about physical things, like we've talked about the broken hip and the example you just used with the back. What are some of the types of sort of mental disabilities that you've seen, and what are, are there external causes or those sort of, because sometimes it's genetics, right?
Right.
They just can't help,
Right.
right? So what are some of the things that you've seen?
So I see a lot of brain injury. I see a lot of people who have gotten into an accident and have ended up with severe depression, anxiety, some agoraphobia, not wanting to leave their house.
Wow.
Because they used to be this person, and on the outside, they look like the exact same person, but cognitively, they're not, and their mental state is completely changed. A lot of depression, a lot of bipolar disorder, a lot of anxiety comes across my desk. And, sometimes people have those diagnoses, but they just don't meet the level of disability. Those are common mental illnesses that are, Social Security looks at them and basically says, these are easily treated with medication. Take some medication and you'll be fine. Well, I know, unfortunately, that is not always the case, that the person who comes in with depression and bipolar disorder and anxiety may be completely different than the person who came in last week with depression and anxiety and bipolar disorder. This person may be able to function perfectly fine and hold down a job, but says, I should be filing because I have these diagnoses, whereas the person who came into my office a week ago is going on spending sprees and is up and down with their moods and, suicide attempts and, really just not bathing, not taking care of themselves, not getting out of bed for weeks at a time. So somebody with the same diagnosis can have a completely different presentation. And it's hard at the outset to say to somebody, I don't really know. So sometimes as the attorney, we have to pull the medical records and see what they say. Is it really as bad as they say it is? Or is it worse than we're even seeing in the office? So it is tough.
Okay. So, but in other words, but you're saying that in some of these cases, there could have been an external accident or whatever that happened, and they could physically be functioning fine, but because they got hit on the head or whatever, that they would have that kind of issue.
Yes.
Right. Okay. Okay. So, are there any situations, and I know you said that about 70% of folks get denied initially, but are there any situations where you tend to get approved, maybe not automatically, but might have sort of a better chance of getting approved right out of the gate?
There are what they call compassionate allowance listings. And compassionate allowance listings are a listing of over about 125 plus conditions that if you are diagnosed with, they need some medical evidence that will prove that you have this, but you are, I don't want to say automatically because it still is a time frame of a few months, but it's almost a guaranteed approval. So I've had a client with multiple myeloma who was, she was diagnosed, we did her application, and she was on a compassionate allowance case, and she was approved almost automatically. There are several different types of cancer, but it's a lot of rare conditions that are on there. So there's some very strange disorders that I have not come across in practice yet, but there are a certain number of listings that will get you approved almost automatically.
But it's those types of disorders that you might have one person have, not 100,
Right.
1 out of 100, not 100 out of 100.
Exactly,
right?
exactly. It's pretty rare.
Okay, okay. So you mentioned before about the application process and filling out the online application and some of the work history. What are some of the other common mistakes that people make when they're trying to, initiate a claim that caused them to get denied that you tend to see?
A lot of the stuff that I see is that people, again, are either trying to make themselves out to be better or worse than they actually are. A lot of the times I see people going to the doctor and you get the medical records and it says, I'm filing for disability, so I want you to document this, 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 and this. That doesn't always work well. Some of the other mistakes that people make is just not seeing their doctor, saying it doesn't really matter, they're going to send me to one of their doctors anyway, so I don't need to waste my time with the doctor. One of the biggest things is not following your doctor's recommendations. So if your doctor says to you, if you have that, you've broken your back and your doctor says, I need you to go see an orthopedic doctor, you need to do physical therapy, you need to do occupational therapy, and you say, no thanks, I'm just going to take Tylenol and I'll be fine, Social Security is going to look at that and say, had you followed your doctor's instructions, you likely would have improved. So basically, you're keeping yourself impaired. So that's one of the big things. And I always tell people, you have to treat, 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 treat.
Okay.
If your doctor tells you to go here, you go there.
Okay, which makes sense, right? Because I'm sure that yeah, because I mean, for some people, this could be a lot of money,
Right.
right? And so
Right.
if sometimes people feel like there's an incentive to maybe stretch something out or
Right.
whatever, then maybe they kind of play that game, but
Right.
it doesn't always work here,
Right.
right? Okay. So now, so you talked about how long this process can be, right? Potentially, if you're even going to a hearing and going through the reconsideration process. Let's suppose that someone is ultimately approved, okay, but they're 18 months into it. How far back will Social Security pay for back benefits?
So it depends on the program. For SSI, it goes back from your date of application. So if we apply for somebody on June 1st and they get approved June 1st of next year, they'll get 12 months of back pay.
Okay.
If somebody is applying on June 1st, 2017, was injured, say, May 15th of 2014, they're not going to be paid back to May of 2014. The earliest they can be paid back is 1 year prior to the date of application.
Okay.
So if they had been deemed disabled back in May of 2014, their first payment would have started in June of 2016 going forward. So they would then get 30 months of past due benefits.
Okay. So there is, now obviously you can't guarantee that, right?
No.
Because every situation's different, but there is at least an opportunity where someone could theoretically get back payment, right?
Yes.
Now let's talk dollar amounts. I mean, again, I know that situations are different. I know some of this varies based on, sort of paying into the system and how much you make. But on the SSDI program, is there a general guideline or rule of thumb that if there's a payment that it's, 40% of my gross income or $1,000 a month or whatever that is?
There's really not. The average that I see most commonly is between $1,400 and $1,700 a month. The higher end is around $2,600. You can get additional for children's benefits too. So if you have children and you're a disabled parent, you get an additional dependency benefit, which can be up to 80% of your maximum benefit, but no child can get more than 50%. So if you're getting $2,600 a month in your own benefit, you could potentially get an additional $1,300 if you have one child.
Okay.
So there is more money available to people who have dependents, but it does disadvantage people who have had high-level careers. I've had people say to me, I can't afford to file for disability even though I know I can't work. I made $175,000 a year. I can't live on $3,000 a month.
Right.
It's not possible. That's not my lifestyle. And how do I get more money? And I say, unfortunately, you can't. I mean, this is the cap that they have put, and this is what's in place. There's no way to exceed it. So the average is, like I said, 15-ish a month.
That you've seen and stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's about average.
Okay.
So
okay.
they just take an average of your highest earning years, and then there's a whole formula that they put it into the system. And the best way to find out what your estimated benefit would be is go on to Social Security's website, and you can go into like My Social Security Statement. Log in, create an account, and it will tell you if you became disabled today, what you'd be eligible for. And
Okay.
your SSDI benefit is basically your retirement benefit paid to you early. So you can look at that statement, and they used to send them out on those green and white sheets, and they
Right,
stopped
sure,
sending them
yeah.
out several years ago, convincing everybody to go online and set up these statements. So as you earn more, obviously your dollar amounts will go up.
Okay. And so I know I apologize for jumping around
That's
a little bit, but you mentioned about sort of seeing your own doctor and not necessarily just relying upon the doctor that Social Security contracts. But people should, if they're intending to apply and they go see their doctor, should they tell their own doctor that they're intending to apply?
I think that they should, yes. I don't think that they should solely go to a doctor for the purposes of saying, I'm applying for disability and I was told to see you. Feel the doctor out. I mean, a lot of the times if the doctor is not supportive of a disability claim, there's a reason. The reason is either they don't feel that you're disabled or they just believes that everybody can work. And that happens a lot of the time, that doctors say, you can find something to do, you can, put boxes together, and that's perfectly acceptable. I believe everybody can work. And I've run into that several times where doctors just don't support any disability claims, no matter how severe. But it's always good to let the doctors know that you're filing for disability and find out if they're willing to help you, because the doctors can be crucial in getting an approval with their statements and their evaluations that we do.
Very quickly, at what point should someone seek expert help if they're going through this process?
I personally think that they should start right away. So if you're considering filing, I think that you should meet with an attorney right away, because all I said, it's difficult to get approved in the first try. It's not impossible. And I've seen people contact some attorneys that say, call me when you get to hearing. Do it yourself and contact me when you get to hearing. Well, that's where the money
if that
is.
form is very complicated and they don't know what they're filling out, then they're almost guaranteeing themselves a denial.
Exactly. It's a setup for failure in my eyes. So it's always good to do it right from the beginning.
So, Krista, we have time for one last question here, and this is a really complex process and a subject, and I know there's always a lot of information out there on the internet these days. But what is something that you've seen that people should know about this, but typically don't, or you typically don't see it on the internet? What's one piece of advice you would give folks?
One piece of advice is that if somebody has passed away and they were what you believe was disabled prior to their death, that doesn't mean you can't file a claim.
Wow.
Yeah. The time frames are very limited. So if you've never told Social Security that you're going to file a claim, you have 3 months from the date of death. So if somebody were disabled and they pass away tomorrow, you would have until September 1st to file their claim. If you've never told Social Security. Otherwise, you would have till December 1st to go through. So if you knew somebody was very ill today and you called Social Security or faxed something over to the Social Security office and said, my husband, mother, sister, cousin, best friend is seriously ill and we need to file for disability, we don't know how long they're going to survive. They've been notified and you now have 6 months to file that application.
Well, that's definitely something interesting. That I would have never guessed in a million years. So
I had a case like that. So it was,
okay.
And the Social Security office didn't even know that we could do it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, that I got to tell you, folks, that I would have never guessed. Like I said, and I appreciate our guest today, Krista Emerson, attorney at law, for joining us today to shed some light on this very interesting and complex topic. It's something that, again, as I said in the beginning, it's what people don't like to prepare for, but unfortunately people do need to take this in mind because things can and do happen. So again, many thanks to my special guest, Krista Emerson, and for sharing this information with us, and join us next time as we tackle another topic from the Personal Finance Playbook.